So Inside Out 2 just recently crossed the $1 billion mark at the box office, making it the first movie to cross that mark in 2024 and the fastest Pixar movie to get there. Only 54 movies have ever crossed $1 billion at the box office in all of the history of cinema. That's literally 0.1%. To say that Inside Out 2 has been a monumental success would be an understatement. It's been a historically monumental success, becoming the highest grossing Pixar movie and the fourth biggest animated movie of all time, brushing off any doubts that Pixar just couldn't release great movies anymore. So what gives? Why does the success of Inside Out 2 actually mean Pixar is low-key I'm gonna get into that, tell you my thoughts on Inside Out 2, and go through Pixar's plan for the next few years. Spoiler alert, it's not a great plan. So Pixar's last 5 years has been the literal definition of creative mediocrity. Soul, Onward, Luca, Turning Red, Lightyear, Elemental, 5 box office disappointments, and a movie that most people consider just very average. Yes, Soul and Luca are mostly regarded as very good movies for the most part, but that's about it. This period of time has had the studio reeling, with a lot of fans complaining, people announcing the end of Pixar as we know it. It wasn't looking good. It seems like most of the film world had pronounced Pixar half dead. What would save the studio from the seemingly imminent tumble towards the abyss of endless mediocrity and lack of creativity? Who is going to save? Out comes Inside Out 2, swinging for the fences with Pixar's life on the line. Everybody seemed to be betting on this movie. A sequel, yes, but a sequel to a movie that most consider one of the best Pixar films of the past 15 years. A sequel that, for once, actually makes sense to produce. As Riley continues to grow up, it just made sense to make another movie recounting the experience of her teenage years, which, let's face it, are ultimately the most turbulent years of our lives. And that's putting it mildly. And I was super excited about it as well. The hype seemed real and the studio seemed to truly care about the making of the movie. So when I left the cinema, I couldn't help but feel like Inside Out 2 hit close to home in more ways than one. See, the movie beautifully expands on the imaginative world within Riley's mind, introducing new emotions that just add depth and complexity to her character. They don't all get that much limelight, it's true, but they get just enough to add a new dynamic to the group and plenty of gags and fun, which I really enjoyed, to be honest. Like, I was laughing a good chunk of this movie. Ennui, for example, was hilarious. The movie does a brilliant job showing you the diverse effects of puberty on Riley's brain, including a hilarious demonstration of what teen sarcasm does to the tectonic plates of your emotional geology. It's just an overall fun movie, but there's a layer of complexity and depth that puts the movie over the edge. Like when Joy realizes that maybe growing up means being less happy, which I find a really sad part about adulthood. The extremes of emotion seem dulled in a way, at least in my head, which can be healthy and a part of maturing, but I couldn't help feeling sad when I heard that line and the realization that, yeah, it's kind of true. But what really sets Inside Out 2 apart for me is the third act, and specifically the conclusion between Joy and Anxiety, which honestly made me tear up because I've been in Riley's situation, and having your mind race like that is extremely accurate to anxiety, to how it really feels. I couldn't help but feel seen by what Pixar had created, and that's why in my books, Inside Out 2 exceeds the brilliance of Inside Out. So there we go, right? It seems Pixar has come to its senses. We should all be celebrating the return of the Pixar that we know and love, right? Trust me, that is not what's happening here. In my eyes, Inside Out 2 is the best movie Pixar has put out since Coco in 2017, both by quality standards and by box office generated. And that's the irony of it all, that the best movie they've made in 8 years will probably lead the studio down a painful and boring road of self-destruction. And here's the real reason why. Inside Out 2's crazy success is simply going to serve as justification for Pixar executives to continue to push out more sequels and less original content. That's the problem. They already announced not too long ago that this was their plan, but Inside Out 2 seemed like a testing ground of sorts to see whether they could continue to make successful sequels. And it passed with flying colors. Now, Pixar has the green flag to focus less on original content and keep pumping out sequels. Now, don't get me wrong, sequels in and of themselves aren't a bad thing. There are a lot of great sequels in cinema, but they have to make sense within the story and with those characters. There has to be a plan, a journey the characters can go on. It can't just feel like an extra add-on bonus film, because those are the sequels that flop creatively. And there's a fine balance between serving up more of what audiences want and burning them out with the same stories and characters, like they're doing with Toy Story, for example. If all a studio is focusing on are sequels, remakes, or spin-offs, there's an interesting phenomenon that occurs. People get bored of making the same thing over and over. This happens in any business. It's human nature that people need new projects to work on and fuel creativity. This lack of innovation and creativity is going to trickle down the process. Produce shitty movies, which will in turn disconnect your audience and cause the studio to lose hordes of money. So let's look at what Pixar's plan is for the next few years, shall we? This is their current likely slate of movies going forward. Elio, Toy Story 5, Finding Nemo 3, Incredibles 3, Monsters Inc. 2, and then an untitled Pixar movie from Luca's director. That is a lot of sequels, and although they're not all official, it's highly likely they'll double down on that given the huge Inside Out 2 success. Now, there's a caveat to all this that is crushing. See, I was digging through all the numbers and I discovered something shocking. While Inside Out 2's success might be the death of Pixar's innovation and creativity going forward, it definitely won't be the death of their financial success. Because I was honestly shook after seeing that their top 5 highest grossing movies are all sequels. Yeah, so clearly, although we all complain as an audience that sequels are boring and we want more original stories, we all still end up going to see these movies.
You hypocrites!
Which creates this vicious cycle whereby Pixar keeps making sequels and they keep making money, incentivizing Pixar to keep making sequels. And this is the sad reality though. If you don't continue to innovate and produce new IP, you're bound to plateau and become forgotten. That's the rule of any business, not just a movie-making studio. Because without new IP and innovation, you don't garner new fans. It's mostly old fans coming back to see the same IP they watched when they were younger. And without new fans, you become irrelevant as a business and you stop growing. Honestly, all that we can hope for at this point is that audiences get tired of seeing the same IP over and over and over again. But by that point, Pixar might be in too deep to get back out.